All right. Okay, so you said doing the soul's work, Kevin. What
Yeah.
does that mean to you?
It's such a fine line for me as I dig deeper into, physiology and the mind body connection. And then, a lot of folks, like there is no self or soul. It's just like the mind and the body doing its thing. And I don't know, so I'm going to go on a belief here. uh, but because of what I've experienced in certain instances, and then also what I choose to believe right now, which I'm totally open to seeing otherwise. I truly think that the mind and the body's a vehicle. Um, the mind is a controller, but not the master controller. And ultimately, they're here to do whatever your soul's mission is on Earth to do. Um, I think that some of these truths are thousands of years old. Um, And I think that recently, well, not even recently, I just think that because our mind has such a capacity to create stories, um, there's created a distance between that truth and that reality that you have to like almost go backwards a little bit and shed some of these layers and beliefs to find, truths that are ultimately yours. So without getting too ethereal once again,
Get ethereal. I
that's
love it.
yeah, yeah. That's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's beautiful. Ah, you can get ethereal all you want with me. I love it. Um, yes, right. It's addition by subtraction,
Yeah.
unlearning,
Hmm.
right? So, like you said, shedding the layers, getting to the truth. It's getting to the core.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what do you think your soul's mission is? Like, what do you think your purpose for your existence on this planet for the time you have is?
I think in some ways, all of our mission is to serve others, and the pathway that service takes can be different. It could be maybe you're in financial services, maybe you're coaching, maybe you're teaching, maybe you're gardening, maybe you're creating art. The modality, the path, whatever your skills are just a means to channel that purpose. But ultimately, it's to serve others in some way. Um, I think sometimes, mine is just helping others find their own path or find meaning in their path, find confidence within themselves. Because we all get shaken sometimes, and maybe some of that self doubt creeps in. So I think just helping people with that a little bit. I mean, right now, obviously, it's being a good dad and a husband. I think putting that in perspective is super helpful. The people I'll have the most influence on are going to be my kids. So I have to be very aware of that and not, oh, how can I help all these people? It's like, stop. The people right in your immediate space are the ones you'll have the most impact on. That'll, you know, be your biggest opportunity to serve others. So I think that's what it is in some ways. And I think that modality and how you do it can change over time, which is great. Um, I think that even just being a self-aware person is a way to serve others as well. And how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, how you try to listen to people, that is a form of service to others, whether it's leading by example or giving people the opportunity to be heard. So there's a ton of different ways I think to do it.
Yes, I agree. Do you know who William James is or was?
Hmm.
And so the psychology building at Harvard University is in his name,
Mm.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. And right, he psychologist and studied people and life, and he said, everyone ultimately wants the same things, right? Doesn't matter what culture or environment they're in, right? Like they want to feel valued, they want to feel loved, they want to feel heard,
Mm.
appreciated, all these core elements, right? And it's something that when I read years ago, I've never forgotten, because it's like, huh, it allows you to go into different spaces and places and um, connect with people instead of just communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's such a great point. I mean, we are a social being. So a lot of the things that we value are the things that resonate with us mentally, physiologically, with like the hormones and everything. A lot of that, is reflected in when we're communicating with others, when we're relating to others. We're not really built for isolation for long periods. It's not good for us. So that should tell you something as well.
Yes. Should tell us a lot. That's
Hmm.
for sure. You talked about your children and that putting that first, right? Your wife. What do you hope your children get right in this world? What lessons do you want them to learn from you that you want them to live out, you want them to model for others?
I would love it if they always, going back to the first thing we talked about, the choice. I would love it if they knew that no matter the circumstance, no matter the environment, they always have a choice. And if you have a choice, the reference point for making that choice is, your values or who you decide to be. And shit, if you're super badass, then the reference point for that choice is your soul.
Mm.
But I think that would be the big thing, is like you always have a choice. Like no matter how screwed up something is, um, choose a pathway. And you don't have to, like, you have a choice to be influenced by this, and you have a choice to not be influenced by this. I mean, I'm not a naysayer on technology, but I don't think that, I think people don't value their ability to respond to life around them enough. And if you give it away too freely, you'll be part of someone else's agenda, which sometimes can be great because you can learn a shit ton. But a lot of times it's probably not healthy.
Can you say more about that?
I mean, this is like a pathway on just the influences of social media, or the ability to be constantly surrounded by someone's quest for your attention. That is probably not an authentic outcome. Like, hey, we're going to create something shiny so that on the bottom or underlying it, we're advertising something to you. Like I just, stuff like that, or um, being influenced by something that's transactional.
Mm.
That's dangerous, because once the transaction's done, your value to that person or that entity doesn't exist, but you still have a attraction maybe to it. I think it's not good to live just based on transactions entirely.
That's exactly right. Yeah, one of my mentors says, play long-term games with long-term people. In
Hmm.
other words, build a lifelong relationship. And don't just be concerned about this moment of getting ahead or getting something or whatever. It's like interact with people that you want to be in a space and a place with them for decades to come.
Hmm.
I love that. It's a great reminder for me. When I say that to you, what comes to mind?
I think that's good. But I also think there's times when there is a transaction that it's like mutually agreed upon, where it's like, okay, I'll give you $10, you give me X, and like, awesome. I just keeping, once again, the choice, right, of like, hey, there's opportunities for those long term transformational relationships that have meaning and depth to them, and then knowing which one's which, and knowing at what instance to share your gold and when not to. I think
Mm,
that's a big thing too.
yeah. And does that come down to trust, or what does that come down to for you? Knowing when to share your gold and when not to.
That's a good question. I'm still figuring that out. Um, Self-awareness helps. Being aware of the situation. For me, I think it's more of leaning into something and being willing to share more, but then not allowing, the situation to run away with itself, right? It's like, hey, I'm here to share, I'm here to help, I'm here to be open, but I'm not giving away myself in the process, like whatever that might mean. I don't even know, but I'm still trying to figure that out as well,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's hard to provide value and serve others and help others if you're not giving something to them.
Yeah, that's true. And I think also as we talk about replenishing. So Louis Armstrong used to say, "You can only blow out what you got in you." Right? And it's like it's great to be a giver, but I think there's also you have to learn how to individually and collectively we have to learn how to do that well, because if you just give all the time, then you have nothing to give at some point, right? You just wear out, wear down, right?
Yeah.
You burn out. um One thing I wanted to ask you, all right, so did you have this image in your mind of joining the Navy, like when you're grade school, middle school, high school, like, or becoming a Navy SEAL, or how did that enter your consciousness, awareness? Like,
Hmm.
was that like, okay, I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL, and like as a whatever 12-year-old or something, or like, how did that
Hmm.
come about?
I had family members in the military, so I think that influenced me heavily. One thing was in high school, I wasn't a particularly good student because I was always the kid staring out the window, daydreaming, looking for an adventure, something exciting to do. So I knew the one thing that I'm grateful for is I was mature enough to know that I was not mature enough for college, that I would have just wasted time and money. So I think with that in mind, that kind of eliminated that option. And I think I went to the Navy recruiter. I was probably like 17. I joined when I was 17, actually, and I had to wait till I was 18 to leave.
Oh,
Um, so I think I probably knew around 17, 16 that I wanted to do that. And then, going to the recruiter, borrowing the little VHS tape, 45 minutes, where they talked about the SEAL community, I was hooked. I was like, oh shit, like I definitely need to do this. I think that's when it became just the singular folk. There was no backup. There was no other option. Like that was it. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I just knew it was going to happen. So probably a good thing of maybe being young and naive and just like, hey, whatever this path is on, I'm just going to follow it until I get what I need.
yes. And what was it that hooked you, if you can think back? I know this was
Mm.
a few moments ago.
Yeah.
What was it that hooked you, Kevin?
What's funny is, we talk about values, and I think our values change or our priorities change. I think back then for me, just the opportunity, it's funny at Buds and SEAL training, they have these wooden plaques that hang up, and there's a few of them, and one of them is be someone special.
Mm,
And I think that was probably the big draw for me, is to do something and to be in a special environment with amazing people and to have the opportunity to actually be that person. That was super exciting to me. Is like, holy shit, look at these amazing people doing all this good work in a team environment, working super hard, doing all this crazy stuff, like 97% of it I don't even know.
Mm.
I was like, that's special. And then immediately the thought was, well, holy shit, I can be special by
Mm.
becoming that. It's just like so I think that was it. It makes me think it, and this happened this year at Badwater. I was
Yeah.
running the race, and they start in waves every 2 hours, so the people who think, hey, I'll probably be towards the back of the pack go first. 2 hours later, middle of the pack. 2 hours later, the elite folks were, you know, in it to win it. I was in the middle of the pack. So I knew that somewhere down the line, the elite folks would pass me by at some point. And when the first place runner came by me, it sounded like a bird flapping his wings. He was running so smooth, so quietly, and it was the dead of night. There was nobody else around. It was just me, and I just heard this, and he just ran by me, and I thought, holy shit, like that's special.
Yeah.
And the next thought was, well, how close could I get to that? Like if I spent a year just training like a badass, like could I run with that person? So that I think that belief of if it exists, like I could do it somehow is one, and then seeing it, seeing something awe-inspiring, and then really wanting to be a part of it or to be that. I think those were the big draws for me.
Yeah. And that did that transform into team, right? Because the Navy SEALs and a lot of the special forces, people I know and like the lore, the myth about it is like how well the team operates together,
Mm-hmm.
right? How well the team has to work together. Did that transpire in going from you thinking, okay, I want to be someone special, I want to become that, to how can I help us be that?
Mm-hmm. That happens on day one. I mean, a team is made up of individuals, so you have to be, a high character, high skilled person to make sure that team is highly skilled. So, like right away, you learn that I'm only as good as my team, and my team's only as good as me. So, um, and it's a great environment. I loved it. So, I I learned right away on day one, like, hey, if I'm going to be someone special, it's because I'm on a special team, and
Mm.
it's my responsibility to to uphold my end of that, so that I can actualize it and be a part of it. Because that type of a team, if you're not meeting your end of the bargain, you won't get to experience it, if that makes sense, because you're not contributing to it at that high level.
Did you and you realize that right away? Do or did it take? Was there's levels of realization for you as you went along in terms of the responsibility to uphold that standard to the team? How did that work for you mentally, emotionally?
I think you realize it right away, and maybe your depth of experience, grows as you stay. But I mean, on day one, everything you do pretty much is within a team setting or a group of your peers. So you learn quickly. It's actually more of a motivator to be a good teammate than a good individual.
Mm.
Like, I mean, the greatest honor is when someone says, like, hey, I trust you with my life, or, you're a good operator. Like, that's like, oh, that's awesome. I don't care how fast I am at something. I mean, I do care, but when your team says that you're a good team member, like that means everything. And I think the ways of, at first it's, how do I make sure I'm good enough to be in the team? And then, how do I maintain? And then there comes a transition point of, well, how do I make sure the new guys coming in are a good part of the team? How do I make sure I teach them? So you go through phases of that. You're always trying to be competent, but then you're always trying to make others around you as well.
So, what lessons have you learned from experience and observation about helping others become excellent team members that you'd be able and willing to share with the 5 people who are listening? Two of them are my parents.
Oh yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Hmm. I think putting people in a place where they have the opportunity to grow. Someone makes the team. Now, what is available to them to grow in their skills and their character, right? How are they? Their skills is like what you do. Character is how you do it. How is there an opportunity to grow that and expand it? How do you encourage them, inspire them, and then empower them, right? You tell them you can grow, and then you say, here's a pathway. So that I think is super important that we unconsciously do a lot of times because we have an amazing culture and it's built that way. But then when you consciously do it, I think you can see how people grow and develop, and it's one of the most rewarding things in the world. You're like, oh shit, this guy wanted to quit and now he's an amazing leader, or this guy was really having a hard time doubting himself, but he worked so hard at it and now he's teaching others. Like that kind of transformational growth is really inspiring. And I think a lot of people, regardless of the SEAL team, whatever team, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of people appreciate that and are drawn to it. It's just it has to be once again, an intentional choice to make that happen and to communicate that with people like, hey, I am here to make you a better person. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen. And right away, like, oh, that's the cultural expectation here. Like, yes, this shit doesn't happen by chance. Like we are actively pursuing each other's excellence. And that's like very empowering.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and how cool! What a cool mission, right?
Yeah.
What an elevated mission and how do you bring with Arena Labs and the work you're doing now? What 3 years out of the SEALs, right? Give or take.
Yep.
And a year and a half with Arena Labs. How do you bring that into the workspace that you're operating in now, and communicate it effectively so it's crystal clear for people to commit to that?
Yeah. One lesson I learned is right away, know your audience.
Whoops.
And the folks, the folks that we're working with in healthcare, in the high stress, like really high demand, high consequence environments. These are people working in the operating rooms, emergency rooms, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, like even more than that sometimes. They have, in some ways, because the job is so demanding and because they're such servant archetypes where they put the patients first, they put their teammates first, they have, to our earlier point, given a lot of themselves mentally, physically, emotionally. And as you know, like what goes out has to be replenished. Like that, you have to pulsate, right? Energy out, energy in. And these folks have not culturally made it a priority, either because it's difficult to, because the time constraints and the demands, and because of maybe some of the mentalities previously of like, figure it out, suck it up.
Push through.
Right, push through.
Yeah.
And because we have such an amazing capacity to push through, like our ability to endure as humans, I mean, that's why we're still here after hundreds of thousands of years, right? Is pretty magnificent. But that endurance isn't the status quo. Like eventually endurance leads to either one thing: either you're broken, burned out, you quit, or someone tells you you're not capable enough anymore, right? That's endurance. Like whenever you toe the line to a marathon, you know that no point throughout that race will you be better off than when you started, right? Because your energy,
Yeah.
you've built your capacity through training, your energy is here. And throughout the race, it's going to be going down, 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 down. Now, you might be a badass and be able to extend that for quite a ways, but you are not coming up. The only way to come up is to regenerate, and that's like through sleep, through rest, things that allow your body to adapt. So that's a long-winded way of saying the first thing that we have to do is tell people that. They know it, but you have to tell them it and reaffirm it, that like you are in this endurance mindset right now. And that might work for a week, for a weekend, but that's not going to work for a 20-year career, especially if you come home and you're a mom or a dad, because now you're beating yourself up because you're not present for them.
Yes.
So we have to tell them you are in this endurance mindset. And then we flip that and we say, but there's an alternative, and it's the performance mindset, where psychologically and fundamentally and physiologically, in all these ways, spiritually, you are taking time and you are providing yourself opportunities to replenish that energy, right? And it can be small. It could be like, hey, my sleep efficiency is 92%. Well, let's get you to 93%. What are some of these small things that we can do? These people that are operating at the fringes of what's possible, you can't, I always tell people, I can't take you out of here and go to Tibet and spend a month on the side of a mountain, eating amazing food and just being in nature to rebuild you up. But what we can do is give you these little 1% techniques, tips, and tools that if you can integrate them into your day like that, now you're finding ways to replenish your energy little by little. So I think that is the biggest thing that we can do, is make people aware of where they're at, how they've been living, how they've been using that human system, and then showing them an alternative, giving them tools and techniques, and then helping them normalize that individually, as a team, and then culturally, so that it takes time and it takes awareness and it takes effort, but it's possible, and it makes a huge difference in people's lives. But you gotta show them there's a different way. You gotta motivate them, inspire them, tell them it's possible. You have to guide them. You can't do the shit for them, but you gotta guide them and give them. If we told them, you throw a book at them and you say, "Figure it out,"
Yeah.
right? Like, you gotta make that investment. And then, to me, my goal is always to work myself out of a job. Like, my goal is to help people, give them fundamentals, and then now you drive the car, because you cannot be dependent on someone else. And like, I come alongside you, give you tips and tools and help you, and then I move off, and then you go, and then it's your turn to help someone else, right?
What are some of the fundamental tips and tools with this audience that you have found to these frontline workers that you're talking about are the edges of their capacity? What are the fundamental tools and techniques and tips, strategies that, when implemented, do make a difference in the work they're doing and the life they're living?
Yeah, so big thing, self-awareness. People have aha moments where, like, oh my gosh, I was in this situation, I would have responded like this, but this time I decided to do this instead. Where maybe that choice had a little bit of self-care involved in it. So self-awareness is huge. Letting people be aware where, hey, I'm about to go into my second surgical procedure today as a surgeon or as a nurse. I haven't really hydrated. I've been going from patient to patient. I'm kind of scatterbrained. Let me take 5 minutes while I'm scrubbing in to do some resonance breathing, where now what I'm trying to do is get my foot off the gas pedal, which is the sympathetic response, and apply the parasympathetic. right? So now I am consciously changing my physiology by going into a parasympathetic state, which is alleviating in the acute moment the stress response. But then over the long term, if you can do that in little chunks throughout your day, you're also helping yourself out. So, but the most important part is being aware enough to do it in the first place. So I celebrate those moments when people say, "Oh man, I was about to come home, but before I got out of the car, I was in the driveway and I just did like 3 minutes of breathing." I'm like, "That's awesome. The breathing is great, but it's more important that you were aware enough to do that because you knew the context of your situation and that you wanted to be in a different state to meet that situation as a father, husband, wife, mom, whatever." Like that's amazing, progress. So those things, find the transitions, do something, breathing exercise, a little bit of light stretching, movement, um, getting some fresh air, taking a quick walk. Hey, it's a lot of times at work, all right, we're going to do a meeting. Let's just do a phone call. And then the expectation is you're outside walking. So little things like that can make a big difference.
Yeah, I like to think of, thank you for sharing that. I think
Mhm.
that's really helpful for a lot of people, not just the frontline workers
Oh yeah, for
in the
sure.
country, but everyone, right, who's under uh, feeling a sense, I think, in speaking to a lot of different people around this country and some around the world as well, there's this sense of like the demand is only increasing
Hmm.
and they feel like they have to do more and more and more. And it's like, oh, the weight is getting
Hmm.
heavier and heavier. And like you said, the awareness, I always, when I've talked to people, I always tell them about a stoplight. And I say, like, green is when you're thriving, yellow is all right, you need to be paying attention to figure out how to get back to green because once you get to
Hmm.
red, it's a lot of things fall apart
Yep.
like a house of cards. So that awareness of when they're in yellow so they can get back to green because most the time we don't do anything until we're at the as um a gentleman says we hit the basement floor hard. You
Yeah.
know? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Um any others that come to mind for you? Any other tools? Tips? Yeah.
Going back to because we're social creatures,
Mm.
having relationships are meaningful to you. Taking time to connect with people, whether that's coworkers, family, friends, sharing a 10-minute check-in conversation, um, sending that message to somebody that you think about, but you're like, ah, shit, I should send them a note. Like, send it. Um, for physicians, a lot of things I recommend is like go rounding on your people. You round on your patients, go round on your people. Just walk the halls and check in on them and make sure it's just an authentic check-in or just say thank you. Without an agenda. It's like, hey, I know you're working hard. I might not be able to change the circumstances right now, but I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. And like that simple message goes farther than a lot of other things you can do. So I think just, hey, what are the channels I have available to me? Number one is the human connection piece. How can I leverage that to help others? Um, so I think that's important as leaders, especially go rounding on your people. As a leader in a household, check in on your family members.
Mm.
You know, so I think those are big ones.
What we appreciate appreciates.
Yeah.
Well, coming up on time, I want to
Hmm.
be respectful of your time and your energy and any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our five audience members too.
uh, you know what? No, this is, like I said, it's a journey, it's an experience, it's a path. There's ups, there's downs, there's foggy sections, there's uncertainty. I think finding what's really important to me, what's helped me, and what might help others is finding that thing within you that transcends the circumstances, whether it's a belief, faith, whether it's a certain value, whatever that certain thing is that is always there. And even for me, sometimes if I'm like, I can't figure shit out, I doubt myself. Um,
I called
I
you
can
that.
draw. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I exactly right. Or draw upon what someone else has done,
Mhm.
because the fact of the matter is they did it with a mind, they did it with a body. They're human just like you. So if any human has persevered or done something, I mean, I'm not going to compare myself to LeBron James and stand under a basketball rim and like hope to dunk, but I know that there's people that have done very, very difficult things or have seen things through or have just taken another step when shit was really dark and scary. um, I can take faith in that too, because that is within me, because we're all human. So that has helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. There's a saying, success leaves clues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, Kevin, you're a beautiful, beautiful soul and a beautiful person. And I really appreciate your service to our country, and I appreciate and honor you for taking the time out today and reaching out to me to start this relationship
Yeah.
because I think it's the beginning of a beautiful journey together. I really do, and I don't say that lightly. So, thanks for your time and your insights, your wisdom lessons today, because I truly know the people who listen to this are going to benefit greatly if they implement these lessons.
Oh, that's awesome. That's all we can hope for. So no, I appreciate it. It's always a great joy to talk about these things and share them. I appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Well, have a wonderful day, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.